Welcome to I believe the fourth episode of Thamanjimmy. We still don't have many viewers, but that's fine. We're gonna keep going. One thing I've learned to do is I now have a timer to keep track of how long my spiel is going to be. I'm trying to keep it down to about 10 to 15 minutes, just because I know it gets boring and I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible. And I know your mind goes waywards after about 10 or 15 minutes. That's a scientific fact. I'm also going to try something new today where I'm just going to discuss one topic. And today's topic is bullying. And it was interesting because this topic started based on a discussion I was having with someone else regarding uh, sexual orientation and laws, and specifically, what laws protect it, or whether it should or whether it shouldn't. And we kept going back and forth, and somehow bullying got into the conversation, and we talked about it, and it made me think about it. Again, he sounded like a normal, average voter who supports big government and the idea that the government knows what to do, and that through laws and through policies that they can make changes in people. And whether that's true or not is it up for debate. But my argument is that I believe that bullying is natural. He said that it's cultural, so it's part of the environment. Now I don't necessarily agree with that, because I personally believe that bullying is universal. It's one of those things like death and taxes and love and happiness. It's just universal. It's like a natural characteristics of human beings, and it can happen anywhere. You could be in China, you could have in Russia, in Brazil, in Europe, anywhere. There's going to be bullying, and I also decided that in some of these discussions, I'm going to try to provide more articles and more research, I guess, rather than just me discussing it. But again, I think me discussing it's helpful because I'm trying to analyze everything and think a little bit critically, and then help others think. And if anyone ever has any ideas or suggestions, I'd love to know, because that's kind of why I'm doing this. Is I'm trying to think about it out loud, and I like discussing real issues like bullying, or education, or FCATs, or a law that's in Florida or something, rather than discussing, well, am I going to vote for Mitt Romney or Barack Obama? It's pointless. That's not really an issue. This is an issue. Bullying's an issue. And if it is natural, what do we do about it? Or what can be done? What should be done? And and will it do anything? Will it make anything better? I'm just going to show a quick video. This is kind of the modern world on how to deal with bullies.
Talking about how to deal with a bully, well, fairness is a very, very large topic to be covering. My advice to you, make connections with people that you view as trustworthy, that also share your interests. In our next clip, this leads us in towards honesty.
So that's one way to handle bullying. It's the idea of teaching respect and honesty, and that was actually something that I discussed with this other individual. But my problem was that forcing teachers to do it in school, whether it's necessary, whether it's a waste of time, and whether it will actually do anything to kids, or will it turn them away. I believe I mean, DARE program definitely does not work, and I believe there's actually scientific proof to show that because people love scientific proof for some reason, that actually shows that it doesn't work. And I would argue that it definitely doesn't work, and it might enable students to become more involved in drugs. Maybe they learn about it, or maybe they want to rebel against what they're being told not to do. People love to do that. When you tell them not to do something, people love to do it, especially when it's not something that you could really argue is morally wrong. Whereas like killing someone's morally wrong. So you could tell people don't kill, and they're not going to kill, but that's, there's a reason for that. But drugs isn't necessarily immoral in the sense that you're not really hurting anyone else. You're not taking away their life or their property or their happiness. And basically what I thought was really interesting in this was I read this article a few days ago regarding can you really teach a kid to become bully proof, and it talks about suggestions on how to handle being bullied. And it talks about having someone to watch your back and make sure you have someone to help you out in case something happens. And then emotional skills, making sure that maybe you don't overreact, because sometimes when people react violently or they have some sort of reaction to whatever you do, it causes the problem. It exacerbates the problem. And this is where we were getting into Zimmerman and all this other stuff where if you initiate, or even foreign policy, let's say with Iran, if you're initiating an aggressive behavior, an aggressive stance, why would you think that that person's going to respond in a kind and respectful way? You're being forceful. If you hit someone, what do you think they're going to do? Even if they don't hit you back, they're going to have a negative and aggressive response. They're going to become defensive in some way. They're usually not going to completely shut down. It's going to be in their head. Maybe they don't act like it, but it's somewhere there. And I was going to talk about this, but I don't. I just thought this section of this was a sad story where a young child, he was bullied for so long and so much that he ended up committing suicide. And this is unfortunate because because he died, but also because he had told, they made fun of him, and he had told teachers, and they had told his parents, and nobody knew what to do. Or maybe they knew what to do and they told him, but he didn't listen, or he didn't apply it, or it didn't work. And that's just another way of showing that, everyone is different. And that's one of the things that's so difficult about education in general, is that because people learn differently, what one person might say to someone, it might go through their head, while someone else might say it, and it might go right through. They'll listen and they'll hear it, and then you have to hope that they actually apply it, which is a whole nother discussion. Because kids are good at memorizing things, but actually applying is a completely different concept. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I just thought it was interesting that he told people, et cetera, et cetera. And then back to that YouTube video, it showed that respect, and there were a bunch of other videos, and I guess these are what teachers are teaching or whatever. But it's basically this idea of respect in the classroom and being positive. Now, that video is the goal is to teach bullies to become positive and respectful. Now, I don't really think you can do that. I mean, they're bullies. They're going to, like I said, it's natural, and I fundamentally believe it's natural because it happens in the workplace, and it happens in the real world with foreign policy and with police and with anyone. It's with marriages, friendships, everything. It just seems to be natural, where if you can have some power, and that power feels good, because you can't have it at work because there's only so many managers, but you get power in a relationship, or you get power maybe you do get it in a job, or politically, you're going to try to, most people are going to try to use it to bully others, and that's an unfortunate realistic world scenario. I know in the military, I remember we used to make fun of people who would, you'd be your E3, your Lance Corporal, which is kind of like your basic guy. And then once you picked up one rank and you got to Corporal, it's like you just changed. And people would say, it's because you're in charge and you're a leader now and all this stuff. But you would just become a bitch. Like, you would seriously become a bitch. And you would tell people what to do and all this stuff. And I dealt with that in other places too. And I just don't understand that. To me, that's that bullying concept. That's not leadership. That's bullying. And I'm reading a book now about Andrew Jackson and how he did kind of the same things, and it worked for him. And that's not to say bullying doesn't work, because it works. And it gets you money, it makes you feel good, it gives you power. And for Andrew Jackson, it worked because it kept his troops in line. But that doesn't necessarily mean that other ways can't work. But again, I digressed. But back to this one. And this is where I had a problem of teachers or adults teaching kids not to bully. Because I will guarantee that the first thing that kid's going to think is, you bully all the time. I see you bully your mom, or I see you bully other teachers. I turn on the TV and watch the news, and they're bullying each other. I watch the president or a congressman, and he's talking, and he's bullying Iran or some other world leader, or Russia, and telling them what to do, or China. And in this study, it said, they had conducted a survey in 2007, and this is one I had read a while back, and I'm sure this is relatively the same, but about 50% of U.S. workers deal with bullying. And of course, these are just people who are honest and who have a phone, et cetera, et cetera. But just the point of it is that even adults deal with bullying. And I think the idea that teachers should be forced to tell on the kids or to do something about the action, I just think it will lead to unintended consequences. Because, as I said before, they're going to dislike you even more. They already don't like you because they're in school, but now they're going to dislike you even more because you're telling them not to do something, but you do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And in here, it's funny. It talks about, I liked one of the headlines here. Create a corporate culture of respect. And I thought that's interesting because that's what they teach the kids to do. So the kids need to do it, and then so do the parents and the adults. And so we're learning about it, but we're not doing anything about it, even as adults. So what's the point of learning about this stuff if we're not doing anything about it? And again, this goes back to a fundamental education debate on the point of education. What's the point of learning history if you're not going to apply it? Seriously, what's the point? And that's my handle here, using that word, is that what's the point of learning about bullies if you're not going to apply these things, if you're not going to respect other people, if you're going to treat people with disrespect on a daily basis? And I just think there's something fundamentally wrong with that. So the question of the day, I got a little fancy today and I actually typed it up. But the question of the day is, how should we deal with bullies? What's the best way to do it? Should the government force parents or teachers to maybe tell a department agency and hope that they do something about it? Should we be forced to have some curriculum in schools or at workplaces to teach people not to bully? Should there be some sort of law that teaches or forces respect and maturity when discussing with other people? Or is it just a natural part of human nature? But, even in my argument that it is natural, that doesn't mean that we can't change and that we can't evolve and that we can't become better people. And that's my hope. And I think it's a bit naive, probably, because you could say the same thing with any issue, whereas war or equality, I mean, those things don't have, even today, it's not, even in America, there's not equality. I think next week we're going to talk about the First Amendment and whether children in schools have the rights that adults have. And it's not equal, and it's unfortunate. So again, this is a question, and I'd love to hear suggestions on how should we do it. Should it be a DARE type class? Will that do anything? Well, we're at about 13 and a half minutes, so I'm feel pretty good about that. And that is the discussion for today. And I appreciate everyone. And next time, I think we're going to try to add some music in for an intro and outro. And we're going to see outro, yeah. See if that works. But that's the man Jimmy, and I'll see you next week.